Well, here we are. It's fall. The wagon is for sale. Everything I want to do on it is done. So it must be time to turn my attention to the ever-patient LeMans. I think I'm going to focus on this front end, at least near term. That includes stripping the paint off of the windshield frame, which will be the last painted surface, I believe, that has not been the last surface to be painted the exterior color to be stripped and finished. Yeah. Got to take these off, and that just scares me to death. I think I have the right tool to do it, but it scares me to death. This is a decent tinted windshield. Yeah, it's really dusty and dirty now, but last thing I want to do is break it. And I don't want to break the clips, and I don't want to break the pieces that hold the clips in place. All of that is a nightmare. But in order to do it so that I don't get bubbling in the future, I got to take this trim off. The other thing I'm going to focus on, cleaning up the engine bay, the firewall here. I'm not sure what I'll do about components. Again, this is to get this car on the road and to prevent any more deterioration. I should give some attention to the suspension. I'm looking at the condition of those, and yeah, I think a front suspension rebuild is in my future. So all that under consideration, I guess the thing to do is to pull the rear of the car out. That will release the engine and engine stand. I'll roll that out of the way. I'll push everything back in again so that I have this area cleared out so that I can actually get to what needs to be done in here. The question is, what do I do with the engine? It may slide in back here. If the engine's not up there, I might be able to roll the car up farther. This trunk lid can go back on top of the car here, out of the way of the engine. So let's give that a try, see how it goes. This would be a lot easier if the car was empty. Let's see how the struggles work. Alright, check on the engine up here. Don't want to knock it over. Good so far. Get this out of harm's way. All right, looks good so far.
I'm still standing here, waiting for my honey. Hope she will come for heaven.
Engine out. Now it's time to shove it back in. Good luck.
But she's not here, so I drink another beer to show it all away. Oh yeah.
Well, it's close over here. Show you what's going on around here. Yeah, it's close back in there. I think that's good enough. All right, so what do we start with first? I'll put that off as long as I can, but I need it off in order to strip that. I could just start here and then, yeah. All right, I'm gonna order a suspension rebuild kit. When I have this all apart, then I can wire brush the pieces and also have other stuff out of the way. But I'll order and then I'll begin disassembly of the front end here. Get the car safely up on jack stands, and I'm going to take this front wheel off. That one's going to be trickier, working without space over there, but yeah, there's a part of me, well, okay, can be a jack under there. I can roll this when I need to get to that other side. For now, we'll just focus on here and see what is involved with getting that off. Let's get the ball rolling here. So these are minor repairs. The front lower control arm is a minor repair. All right, let's go ahead and go to front springs. Let's start there. 3/8. Just reading over the front spring, the key part here, and disconnect a bunch of things, and then carefully lower the arm until the spring is free. So let's proceed with that. Removing the wheel, shock absorber, stabilizer link, disconnect the tie rod. I sprayed down the threads there, the threads underneath there, where the other end of there are two bolts that hold the bottom of this shock absorber on. And while gripping on the flats down in there, I was able to get that bolt to come loose, and that's just more of that to get it off. So that clip for that nut has broken. The other one was still there, thankfully. I was able to, there it is, thankfully I was able to get those two, the first bolt out, and get that one loose. That allowed me to slide the retainer, because it's open at each end, and get the shock absorber out. We'll deal with that some other time. Now we'll move on to the sway bar. So the nut is on the top. It's a long bolt down the center. So there we go, right there. Both are 9/16. So I held the nut still and turned the bolt because I could get to that with a socket. So this is now pieced together. Again, the bolt head goes down The control arm fits in that slot. The sway bar end fits in that slot. Onward and forward for the spring. So we've removed, so now we have to disconnect the tie rod from the steering arm. That would be that joint. That tie rod and gasket cover. Anyway, there's a word that escapes me. Looks to be in good shape. So we'll try this ball joint remover. I did try beating on both sides of this extension of the hub, and it didn't pop loose. So we will use this method. Tightening that up should push down the bolt while holding the end of that hub extension in place. Okay, so I am supporting under the control arm now, and I'm going to disconnect the ball joints. So there's my support. Back in there is one, and up there is the other. All right, some tools gave their all to get this off. That ball joint separator and that ball joint. The upper one may be okay, but this one it feels a little loose anyway. So we'll replace that. But the hub is off, spindle, whatever you want to call it. I guess it's a spindle. Hub is the outside thing. Anyway, we're going to carefully lower the jack. Well, even if the spring is not out, at least all the tension is off of it. So I guess, unfortunately, I'm going to need to remove that brake line in order to, I don't know where else to hang the spindle wheel hub and not put a load on that hose. Well, we'll see what we find. While this, whatever that is, shaft was attached, I went ahead and loosened the front and rear bolts that go down into it. And then I went ahead and loosened these, and I did notice that for alignment purposes there was a shim there. There's probably a shim here as well. Oh, there's a whole stack of them. Okay, so that stack was on the front for camber, and let's see what's on the rear. A smaller stack. And that adjusted both camber and caster and other things, I guess. Not necessarily toe in, but it would have some, yeah, camber and caster. All right, so this can come off. All right. We'll put those on and then go to work on the lower control. So I've got the upper completely off. Now we're moving on to the lower. We've already removed the spring. We're going to just unscrew the pivot bolts. Now, removing the bushings could be tricky, but we'll cross that bridge when we get to it. So for documentation, the bolt goes in from the front in both places. In the nut is on the back. 3/4 inch socket on both the bolt and the nut. the reason I needed to take this out before I could place the order was I found out from Ames that the oval versus round has to do with this bushing. And he said, I think it was the rear had to be either oval or round. In both cases, we're definitely round. This, because I flipped it over, this is the rear. This is the underside of the control arm. All right, so I can place my order. So Jeff is struggling with the other sway bar end link. I am taking off this end of the steering setup. I'm going to just take the whole steering box off so that I can not take everything off, and that way it allows me to prime and paint chassis rails completely. So just a recording of where everything goes, so hopefully I get it back there again. The other night, with some help, got the front steering out. So we've got driver's side tie rod end, sleeve, inner tie rod end. Here's the steering link across here, pitman arm, idler arm, idler bracket, and then passenger side, inner tie rod, sleeve, outer tie rod. And yeah, the pitman arm had to kind of mangle a little bit. Should get a replacement for that cup. Everything seems to be relatively snug. The two key ones, well, the key one here this is the replacement. I don't have a replacement for this idler arm. I've got replacement tie rod ends, so these will come out and get replaced. So what are we down to here? Oh yeah, the power steering and steering box are out. We've got an exposed frame rail here. We've got passenger engine mount out. Can't do driver until we get the control arm out, so that's what we're moving on to next, is the control arm, or control arms plural. What I want to do is remove this connection here and here and see where that leaves me, whether I want to keep going or not. I may end up replacing this idler arm ball joint. It's not really a ball joint. It's got some play in it. I don't think it's supposed to have play in it. I'll look into that. But first of all, let's get these two out. So the first thing I'll do is remove the cotter pins on both and then spin off this retaining nut. My new ball joint removal tool. So you can see underneath there, the nut is on there. Just gives me a little bit more bearing area. Got a lot of anti-seize on this bolt going through here. It gets a lot of opportunity to gall. We don't want that to happen. And then try to slide this up against the metal, not up against the rubber boot, although I'm discarding this, but it's a good practice anyway. So yeah, it took a little bit, but it popped out. Got this apart. It's like $109 from Ames for a new center steering link. Really isn't anything wrong with this one. Again, the car has 100,000 miles on it, and most of its life it's been sitting around. We'll try to reuse that. That's not a piece that's so difficult to change if I find some looseness when I go to reassemble. Before I go any farther in removing this spindle with the hub on it, I'd like to remove all of the brake lines, get them out of the way. I'm going to clean them and inspect them and see if they need to be replaced. This one's kind of a bent up mess. It was replaced a number of years ago with just a stock piece that I crudely bent. It still serves the purpose. It's not pretty, A lot of it gets hidden under the engine anyway. So this one we were able to get loose, even though it appeared that to begin with the flare nut was stuck, and still may be stuck. No, it's not. It's turning to the tube. This one here, I sprayed all of these joints with Deep Creep, and these larger ones up here now are free, and then smaller ones at that junction box I'm working on. So in some cases I need to get on them with the vice grips. In other cases a tubing wrench breaks them loose. Got all the brakes lines loose off of that block. Remove the one off the master cylinder. Remove the one that went down to the wheel cylinder. Got the bolts out. That's the lower control arm. I saved the spacers. Oops, forgot a spacer. That is a rear one, and I forgot a front one too. Okay, so front is by my fingertips. All right, I'm going to remove that block. It also appears that I can remove those little brackets. Also appears that forgot that on the driver's side, so we'll take care of those. Then we have the motor mount. I've moved some wires that were dangling, kind of got them hooked up over the optional engine compartment light, and that's special. So onward and forward. So we're looking from the front towards the rear. The one on the left, which appears to be the longer one, I don't know why it would be, but it is. It almost looks like this up here is collapsed. May have to get new springs. We shall see. Anyway, shorter one driver's side, longer one passenger side. And I don't know which end is up, but hey, that's par for the course with me. So with everything stripped off of here, including the motor mounts now, I've got my angle grinder with a wire wheel on it. Let's see what we can do to this front end without tearing anything else up, including parts of my body. All right, turning my attention to the control arm. This is the driver's side. The reason I can tell that, it's got both of its shock retaining nuts in place, where the passenger side, one of them busted off. First thing I'm going to do before I forget is, was instructed by a number of videos, and rightly so, to create a spacer that will keep the two sheet metal bent formed sides in place. So as you see, I've got marks. It's the same length as this opening is here, so get my grinder out and cut it off. So there is definitely a P there, and there's definitely a P there. So that is a now stripped down one, and I'll show you on the driver's side what a non-stripped down one looks like, or how I stripped it down. And this is one that hasn't been stripped down for the passenger side, but I did successfully get everything off, which is the two bushings and the ball joint, as well as, I believe this one had a bump stop screwed in there, and then the two clips for holding the shock absorber bolts. So this one is ready for sandblasting and powder coating, or wire brushing and more of that Pour 15, because I got plenty of that paint left. So now, like I said, I'll move on to doing that lower control arm and show you how I did it. I've got the spacer on the back side. Even if I use this, the stud of the ball joint pokes out too far. I can't just push on that. So I've got this aligned as best I can. We'll very carefully hit it with the impact wrench and make sure it's all in line and pops out. Well, first time was a charm. As long as everything was lined up dead straight, then the end of the ball joint stud does not want to push off of the C-clamps bolt. So pushed it on through, and there it is. Empty hole into the garbage. Hopefully I don't need those Zerk fittings. Can't imagine I do. Now turn my attention to these bushings down here. And what I found works is use this to just shove the metal sleeve out from the inside of the rubber, and then the rubber is fragile enough. Well, you'll see. I'll go ahead and set this up. So that is about the same size as the sleeve in the center. I've got the larger sleeve to clear, and then a flat steel plate there to provide the backing for the C-clamp. And so as I tighten this bolt and the C-clamp, it's just going to shove that right on out. Let's see if I can show you. Okay. Since it stopped, I'm thinking that the sleeve now has contacted that metal plate. We'll back it out and see what it looks like. Take that off. See, the sleeve is about all the way through. I'll just grab it with something and get it out the rest of the way. I'm pretty sure, like I said, yeah, that's right at the height of the sleeve. I guess I could. The sleeve's a little bit longer. All right, let's try that. Okay, the metal plate. Drop it in there. Go back to here. I would say that is all that one's gonna go. Okay, it's wiggling, but I think that's a two-person job. So, and that just comes out of there. All right, so I'll do the other side. Well, yeah, let me pull this out and I'll show you how that the rubber bushing part comes out easily. All right, I don't know if I'm going to be able to do this one-handed or not, but just pushing that sleeve out caused the rubber to get shoved the other way. One of the things I did was I was able to get the screwdriver in there. Yeah, I need two hands. All right, that one was more stubborn than the other ones. Wasn't as decayed, still in pretty good shape. What I did then is I put this large socket on the end of the bolt here, and I put that spacer on there with the plate, and then by spinning this in, it pushed the bushing on out. So now I will move on to, I'll go ahead and do the same thing over here, get that one apart, and then I'll show you how I take care of this outer sleeve. So once the rubber bushing part is out, then there's a bit of the sleeve that extends to the inside. So with my spacer in place so that I don't crush these together, I've got this plate from the kit that is pushing on the sleeve, and then I've got a spacer and I've got the other end in here. So now if I just tighten this up, you can watch that close down. right, we go as far as we can. That may be all. Okay. So that is now, the sleeve is a little bit below flush. What I did with the other side is I ground through here, but I'm not so sure I need to do it on this one. I will try to, oh, that's a little bit loose. So I guess once you pop it off, there must be some shoulder or something. Once you pop it off through there, you should be able to work it off. Alright, I can get that one off with two hands, easier than one, but hey, got it with one. So we'll do the same thing on the other side now. Alright, now we're looking at the driver's side upper control arm, and because this bushing kit came with this new center bar, the easiest way to do this is cut this or grind with a cutoff wheel a section out of this. These come out, and then the bushings come out, and then you can press each of the sleeves individually. So that's what I'll do now. Put on a new wheel on that, and then put on a face mask and ear protection and grind that out. So with that section cut out and very hot piece of metal sitting in there, don't touch that. This will slide out far enough to come out, and this one will slide far enough to come out. And then we're going to go with these center sleeves the same way as I did on the lower control arm. So I'll rig that up and press those out. One's pretty crusty. It should come out, but I think I'll need two hands. I kind of stick, let's see, somewhere there is a screwdriver. There it is. Okay, so I stuck that in between the sleeve and the rubber and kind of forced it. And do the same thing from this side. So I'll do that and pry that out. Got the metal on there to bear up against that back of the sleeve. I've got the tube for the press, and now if I tighten it, it should pull that down through. Let's see what happens. Oh, I did spray some deep creep on there. That happened. Let's say that's all I'm getting out of that. Okay. That out of the way. That out of the way. And yeah, I'm gonna have to do some tapping to get this the rest of the way out. It's kind of flush on the inside, but I do need to tap it, get it to go all the way out. I saved the hardest one for last. These ball joints were riveted on at the factory, and I've seen some directions that say grind off the rounded heads of the rivets. I wasn't real successful with that on the first one. What I ended up doing was I took this punch and punched as close to the center as I could in the four heads of these rivets. Then I started just with the best smaller drill bit I got and drilled like a little pilot dimple. And then I took it over to the bench press, the drill press, and drilled out enough to where I had kind of gotten into the, call it the shaft, the shank, whatever, of the rivet. Once I was into that, then I could take a chisel and just shear off the head. Once all 4 heads were off, then it was a matter of tapping with one of these punches through each of them, and the whole thing just fell out. So I will start by center punching those and pre-drilling the holes. So you can see they may not be dead center. They're probably close enough, but then I'm getting down into, like I said, the meat of this head. So hopefully there's just a little bit of metal holding it to the shank, and I can just pop them off with a chisel and a hammer. So yeah, there was just a little bit left holding those heads on. So now I should be able to just take the center punch here, or this punch, in the center of each of those, and just work myself around, and it should pop off. Need 2 hands for that though. So yeah, just a few taps on either side, and then it just pops out the back. And I should be able to pull that with the boot through the hole here. There we go. All right, so that control arm is now stripped of parts. I have one place that gave me a quote of $240 to sandblast clean, mask off the bushing bores, and then powder coat in black for the 4 pieces. If I think about it, $60 a piece. The labor, sandblasting is gonna take some time. I asked in a couple other places. We'll see if they're all in line with each other. I'll just go to the cheapest one. It's not rocket science. So those are dealt with.